their first glimpse of a human warship. Then panic swept through every enemy armada. Far above the golden clouds of the planet Thren, hundreds of alien ships hung in the dark, like silver fish, frozen in still water. This was the meeting place of the Cordon Alliance, a union of 6 starfaring races that had ruled a wide stretch of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Their ships were old and proud, built from designs passed down for generations. Their guns were strong, their crews were brave, and for a very long time, nothing had ever truly frightened them. Inside the command ring of the Alliance flagship, a massive vessel called the Vantor's Crown, 6 leaders sat around a curved table. Each one represented a different species, and each one wore the marks of their people with pride. There was Speaker Doran of the Threll, a tall being with gray skin and calm yellow eyes. There was General Ashka of the Ruvain, a broad, four-armed warrior whose voice always sounded like distant thunder. There was Elder Koss of the Mittil, small and quiet, but known for seeing many steps ahead of everyone else. The other 3 seats held representatives from smaller races who mostly listened and rarely spoke. Today the topic was a small, wet planet on the far edge of known space, a planet called Earth. "They call themselves humans," Speaker Doran said, tapping a control on the table. An image of a blue and green world appeared above them, spinning slowly. "Our scout ships have watched them for many years. They are young. They have only been in space for a short time. Their weapons are simple. Their ships are slow." General Ashka crossed 2 of his 4 arms. "Then why are we spending so much time talking about them? If they are weak, we take their systems and move on. We have done this many times before." "Because," Elder Koss said softly, 3 of our scout ships have gone missing near their border in the last cycle." The room went quiet. "Missing?" Ashka asked. "Destroyed?" "We do not know," Koss said. "They simply stopped sending signals. No wreckage was found. No distress calls were heard. They were simply gone." Ashka waved a hand, dismissing the worry. "Ships get lost. Equipment fails. This proves nothing." "Perhaps," Koss said. "But I have learned, over many long years, that it is often the quiet things that should worry us the most. A loud enemy announces himself. A quiet one waits." Speaker Doran leaned forward. "Whatever the truth is, the humans do not yet know how small they are compared to us. Our reports say they still fight each other over small pieces of land on their own world. They argue in large buildings instead of making quick decisions. They are not ready for a war among the stars. I say we test them, send a modest fleet. Not our best ships, not our worst. Enough to see how they respond, and enough to remind them that this galaxy already belongs to someone." Ashka smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Now that is a plan I like. I will lead it myself." And so, 300 alien warships turned their engines toward a small, unremarkable star system that the humans called Sol. Far away, on Earth, none of this had been announced to the public. Only a small number of people in the highest levels of government and military command knew that alien ships had been sighted at the edge of the solar system years ago. Only a smaller number still knew what had happened after that first sighting. Deep beneath the mountains of a place that no map would show, a massive shipyard had been built. It had taken 12 years, unlimited resources, and the combined effort of every nation on Earth, working in total secrecy. The story told to the public was that this was a research base, studying deep space physics. The truth was much bigger. Inside a chamber the size of a small city, a ship was nearing completion. It was long, dark gray, and shaped like a blade. Engineers in white uniforms crawled over its hull in small maintenance pods, checking every seam and every weld. Its name, painted in plain letters near the front, was the UES Dawnbreaker. UES stood for United Earthship, a name chosen carefully to remind everyone who built it that this project belonged to no single nation, but to the whole of humanity. Commander Elena Reyes stood on an observation platform overlooking the ship, arms crossed, watching the final systems come online. She was 44 years old, with short black hair and tired eyes that had seen too many long nights in this underground base. She had been part of the project since the very beginning, back when it was only blueprints and desperate hope. Beside her stood Dr. Samuel Osei, the lead engineer behind the ship's main weapon systems. He was a thin man with glasses that always seemed to be sliding down his nose, and a habit of talking faster when he was excited, which was most of the time. "Power core stability holding at 98%, Samuel said, reading from a tablet in his hands. "That is better than our last 3 tests combined." "Good," Elena said, "because in 6 hours, that ship needs to fly." Samuel looked up sharply. 6 hours? The council said we had at least 2 more days for calibration. "The council changed its mind an hour ago," Elena said. "Deep space sensors picked up a large group of unknown ships entering the outer system. 300 of them, moving in formation. They are not ours, and they are not anything we have seen close up before." Samuel's face went pale. 300 ships, and we have one. "We have 1 warship," Elena corrected, "and a plan. That will have to be enough." 6 hours earlier, humanity had first built a warship capable of standing in space and fighting. Now, that ship needed to fight before it had even truly been tested. Elena thought about the years that had led to this moment, about how humanity had gotten here. It began 19 years ago, when a research satellite orbiting Jupiter recorded a strange energy signature passing through the outer solar system. At first, scientists believed it was some kind of natural event, perhaps a comet with unusual composition. But the readings did not match anything in nature. Whatever had passed through the system had moved with purpose, changing direction twice in ways that no natural object could. 8 years after that, a small alien scout ship was found drifting, powerless, near the orbit of Neptune. It had been struck by debris and disabled, its systems dead, its single occupant long deceased. When human scientists studied the wreck in absolute secrecy, they realized 2 frightening truths. First, that intelligent life beyond Earth was real. Second, and more terrifying, that this ship's technology, while advanced compared to anything humans had built, was not built by a species that considered Earth a threat worth watching closely. The ship's logs, once decoded, showed only a brief note about a primitive water world, low priority, no resources of value noted. Humanity had been dismissed, written off as unimportant. And in that moment, the leaders of Earth realized 2 things. First, they were not alone, and there were others out there who saw humans as beneath notice. Second, if a scout ship had wandered this far by accident, then eventually, someone with intention would come. The decision was made in near total secrecy. Every major spacefaring nation on Earth would combine its best scientists, its best engineers, and its deepest resources into one single project. Not many ships, not a fleet. One flagship, built to be stronger than anything the fragments of alien technology suggested was possible. It would take everything humanity had learned about physics, about material science, about energy, and push it as far as it could go, using both human ingenuity and the small pieces of alien technology recovered from that dead scout ship. They called the project Dawnbreaker, because a dawn was something that came after a long night, bringing light to push back the dark. For 12 years, the project moved forward in secret, one small breakthrough at a time. New alloys resistant to heat beyond anything natural. Energy shields based on principles pulled from alien wreckage, but improved through human mathematics. Weapons that focused pure energy into blasts, capable of cutting through solid steel like paper. And an engine core built around a stable fusion reaction that could push the ship to speeds no one on Earth had believed possible only 15 years before. Elena had joined the project in its 4th year, a young officer then, chosen for her sharp mind and her calm under pressure. She had watched the ship grow from an empty frame in a massive hangar into the finished vessel that now sat before her, engines glowing faintly blue as they warmed for their first true flight. "Commander," a voice said through her comm. It was Captain Marcus Webb, the man chosen to lead the Dawnbreaker into battle. He had once flown fighter jets for the old air forces, before those forces had been folded into the new Earth Defense Command. "We are ready for final systems check. If you are coming aboard, now is the time." "On my way," Elena said. She walked down a long corridor toward the boarding tube, Samuel hurrying to keep pace beside her. "Elena," Samuel said quietly, "I need to tell you something before you go up there. The shield systems. We tested them against simulated impacts equal to our best guess of alien weapon strength. They held. But we do not actually know their weapon strength. We are guessing, based on wreckage from one dead scout ship, if the fleet coming toward us is even slightly stronger than we planned for. Then we adjust, Elena said. That is what humans do, Samuel. We do not wait until we know everything. We move forward with what we have, and we adjust as we learn. That is how we built this ship in the first place. Samuel took a slow breath and nodded. You are right. I am sorry. This is the moment we have worked toward for 12 years. I want it to go well. It will, Elena said, though she was not entirely certain herself. Because it has to. They reached the boarding tube, and Elena stepped through into the ship. Inside, the Dawnbreaker did not look like the ships in old movies, all flashing lights and beeping panels. It looked calm, almost quiet, with soft lighting and clean lines. The bridge, when she reached it, was a wide room, with a curved viewport at the front, showing the inside of the massive underground hangar. Captain Webb stood at the center of the bridge, a tall man in his 50s with silver hair cut short and a face that rarely showed emotion. Around him, a crew of 30 of Earth's best pilots, engineers, and officers worked at their stations, checking systems one final time. Commander Reyes, Webb said, turning. Good timing. Fleet Command just sent the latest sensor data. The alien fleet has slowed near the edge of the system. It seems they are not rushing in. They may be observing first. That fits what we know, Elena said. They do not see us as a threat. They are probably expecting an easy show of force, not a real fight. Then let us give them something they do not expect, Webb said. Elena took her seat at the command station beside the captain's chair. On the main screen, a display showed the layout of the solar system, with a cluster of red markers representing the alien fleet near the outer edge, past the orbit of Neptune, 300 ships, and the blue marker representing the Dawnbreaker, still resting inside the mountain that had hidden it for over a decade. All hands, Webb said over the ship's internal comm, his voice steady and calm. This is Captain Webb. In a few minutes, we will leave this hangar for the first time. Many of you have spent years of your life building this ship, testing this ship, and dreaming about this moment. I know this is sudden. I know we hoped for more time to prepare. But the truth is simple. Out there, right now, 300 ships from a fleet that has never met humanity are watching our solar system, deciding what kind of people we are. I intend for them to learn something today. Prepare for launch. The massive doors of the hangar began to slide open above them, revealing a tunnel that led upward through solid rock toward the surface, and beyond it, the open sky. Elena watched the countdown on her screen tick toward 0. She thought about the years of secret work, the arguments between nations that had somehow, against all odds, come together for this single purpose. She thought about Samuel's nervous energy, about all the engineers who had given up regular lives to work in this hidden base, about the families waiting on the surface who did not know what their loved ones had really been building all this time. She thought about the dead scout ship and its careless note calling Earth a primitive water world, low priority, no resources of value noted. Let's go show them how wrong they were, she said quietly. Launch sequence, final 10 seconds. A young officer named Priya called out from her station. 9, 8, 7. The engines of the Dawnbreaker glowed brighter, a deep blue light spreading along its hull. 6, 5, 4. Captain Webb gripped the arms of his chair, his eyes fixed forward. 3, 2, 1. The ship rose. It moved slowly at first, easing up through the tunnel carved into the mountain, then faster as it cleared the surface, and the sky opened up above it. On the ground, hidden observers watched a mountain that had stood unchanged for millions of years suddenly split open, revealing a hidden opening as a dark shape rose from within it and shot upward into the sky, faster and faster, until it vanished beyond the clouds and into the black of space. Inside the ship, the crew felt the deep hum of the engines pushing them faster than any vessel built by human hands had ever moved before. Elena watched the numbers climb on her screen. Escape velocity reached in seconds, orbit achieved in under a minute, and beyond that, the ship kept accelerating, its new engine core performing exactly as Samuel and his team had promised. We are clear of Earth's gravity well, Priya reported, setting course for the outer system, toward the alien fleet's last known position. Time to intercept? Webb asked. At current acceleration, approximately 4 hours, Captain. Webb nodded slowly. Then let us use that time well. I want every system checked twice. I want every weapon ready. And I want everyone on this ship to remember why we are here. Elena looked out through the viewport at the stars ahead, scattered like scattered salt across black velvet. Somewhere out there, 300 alien ships waited, confident, unaware that the small, quiet world they had dismissed as unimportant had spent 12 years quietly building something that would change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Back near the edge of the solar system, General Ashka stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching sensor readings of the small blue planet ahead. His 4 arms were crossed as he studied the data his scouts had gathered. Still no sign of any real defenses, an officer reported. A few old satellites, some primitive orbital stations, nothing that could challenge even one of our smallest ships. Ashka smiled, satisfied. As expected, prepare the fleet to advance at first light on their world schedule. We will make a show of it. Let them see our numbers. Let them understand quickly how things must be. He had no way of knowing that 4 hours away, a single ship was already accelerating toward him, carrying inside it every hope humanity had for its own survival, and a weapon system built from 12 years of secret, desperate effort. He had no way of knowing that his fleet, and every fleet in every alien empire across that region of the galaxy, was about to receive its very first glimpse of a human warship. And that glimpse would change everything. The Dawnbreaker moved through the dark of the outer solar system, its engines glowing a steady blue, its hull cutting silently through the empty space between planets. Inside, the crew worked with quiet focus, running final checks on every system while the distance to the alien fleet slowly closed. Elena Reyes sat at her station, watching the growing cluster of red markers on the main screen. 300 ships, spread out in a wide formation near the orbit of Neptune, waiting for what, she was not entirely sure. Perhaps they were simply gathering their nerve. Perhaps they were studying the system a little longer before moving in. Either way, it gave humanity a small gift it had not expected: time. 2 hours to intercept, Priya announced from her station. Captain Webb stood near the front viewport, hands clasped behind his back. Status on weapons? Primary energy cannons fully charged, reported Lieutenant Okafor, a broad-shouldered man who had spent the last 3 years training on the ship's weapon simulators. Secondary rail batteries online, shield generators holding steady at 100%. Good, Webb said. Commander Reyes, what do we know about their weapons? Elena pulled up the data recovered years ago from the dead alien scout ship. Limited information, Captain. The scout we recovered was a small craft, not built for combat. Its weapons were basic energy weapons, similar in principle to ours but weaker in output. If the ships in that fleet are built along the same lines, only larger and more heavily armed, then our shields should hold against a reasonable number of hits. But we are guessing. We have never seen one of their true warships in action. Then we go in carefully, Webb said. We do not need to defeat all 300 ships today. We need to send a message. We need them to understand that Earth is not an easy target, and we need to survive long enough to prove that point. Samuel Osei, who had insisted on joining the bridge crew for this first mission despite not being a combat officer, spoke up from a side console where he monitored the ship's core systems. Captain, if I may, the moment we engage, every system on this ship will be running at levels we have never tested in real combat. I have run the numbers as many times as I can, but there is always a difference between simulation and reality. Understood, Doctor, Webb said. That is why you are here. If something breaks, you fix it. That is the job. Samuel managed a small, nervous smile. Understood, Captain. The hours passed slowly, the ship drawing closer to the waiting alien fleet. As they approached the outer edge of detection range, Webb gave the order to slow their approach, wanting to observe the enemy formation before revealing the Dawnbreaker's full capabilities. Passive sensors only, he ordered. Let us see what we are dealing with before they see us. The screen filled with a detailed image of the alien fleet as the Dawnbreaker's advanced sensors, built partly from technology, reverse-engineered from the scout ship, picked apart the formation ship by ship. Elena studied the readings with growing understanding. 6 different ship types, she reported. The largest appears to be a command vessel, roughly 4 times the size of the Dawnbreaker. The rest are smaller warships, likely escorts and attack craft. Their formation is wide and spread out, not tight. That suggests confidence. They are not expecting to be attacked. Any sign they have detected us? Webb asked. None yet, Priya said. Our stealth systems appear to be working as designed. This was one of the quiet triumphs of the Dawnbreaker's 12 years of development. While Earth's engineers had no way of matching the alien fleet in raw numbers, they had poured enormous effort into making their single ship difficult to detect until it wanted to be seen. Layers of material absorbed and scattered sensor pulses. The engine's heat signature was carefully controlled and vented in ways designed to blend into the natural background radiation of open space. It was not perfect in visibility, nothing ever truly was, but it meant the Dawnbreaker could approach far closer than any normal ship before being noticed. We are now within striking range of their outer formation, Priya said quietly. Captain, your orders. Webb was silent for a long moment, studying the tactical display. Elena watched him, understanding the weight of the decision resting on his shoulders. The moment they fired the first shot, there would be no turning back. Humanity's secret would be secret no longer. 12 years of hidden work would be revealed in an instant, for better or for worse. Commander Reyes, Webb said finally, open a channel. All frequencies, all known alien communication bands that our systems can replicate. I want them to hear from us before anything else happens. Elena raised an eyebrow but nodded, working quickly at her console. Channel open, Captain. Whatever we say now, they will hear it. Webb straightened, his voice calm and clear as he spoke, knowing his words were being translated in real time through systems built using patterns recovered from the alien scout ship's language database. This is Captain Marcus Webb, of the human vessel Dawnbreaker, representing the people of Earth. You have entered our system in numbers suggesting hostile intent. We ask you to turn back peacefully. If you do not, we will be forced to defend our home. For a moment, there was no response. Then, across the fleet, alarms began to sound. Elena watched as the calm, spread-out formation of red markers on her screen suddenly shifted, ships turning, sensors sweeping wildly as the alien fleet realized for the first time that something was very close to them. Something they had not detected until it spoke directly into their communication systems. On the bridge of his flagship, General Ashka spun around so fast that 2 of his 4 arms nearly struck a nearby console. Report! Where is that transmission coming from? His sensor officer, a smaller member of the Ruvain race named Tessic, worked frantically at his station. General, I cannot get a clear reading. Something is close. Very close. But our sensors keep losing the signal. It is as if it is barely there at all. Barely there? A ship the size to broadcast on all channels is not barely there, Ashka roared. General, I have it, Tessic said, voice tight with confusion. 1 vessel, single contact. It is small, General, far smaller than our command ship, smaller than even our escort cruisers. Ashka stared at the screen as the single blue marker appeared, sitting quietly among the outer edge of his formation, having somehow slipped past hundreds of ships without being noticed until it chose to announce itself. 1 ship, Ashka said slowly. 1 single ship dared to speak to me as though it were my equal. General, Elder Koss's voice came through on a secure channel, from a smaller ship further back in the formation. Even from a distance, the old alien's voice carried its usual calm caution. I would suggest care. If a single ship could approach undetected through our entire formation, then whatever technology they possess is not primitive. Nonsense, Ashka snapped. Our sensors are simply calibrated for detecting larger threats. A small ship slipping through means nothing except that it is small, and weak, and foolish enough to challenge us alone. He turned back to his crew. Target that ship. All nearby escort vessels. Converge and destroy it. Let this be a lesson broadcast to their entire species before we even reach their world. Aboard the Dawnbreaker, Elena watched as nearly 40 of the alien fleet's smaller warships broke formation and began accelerating toward their position. Captain, 40 vessels incoming, she reported, her voice steady despite the tightening in her chest. They did not take the warning well. No, Webb said. I suppose they did not. He took a slow breath. All hands, brace for combat. Shields to maximum. Lieutenant Okafor, prepare primary weapons. We gave them a chance to walk away. They chose otherwise. The 40 alien ships closed the distance with alarming speed, their weapons charging, small pulses of colored light gathering at their bows. They are opening fire, Priya called out. A storm of energy blasts crossed the empty space between the two forces, dozens of shots converging on the single human ship. Elena gripped the edge of her console, watching the shield readout on her screen as the first impact struck home. The ship shuddered slightly, lights flickering for a brief moment before steadying. "Shields holding," Samuel called out from his station, relief clear in his voice. 89% and stable. The projections were accurate. Their weapons are strong, but our shields can handle sustained fire from this size of vessel. "Then let us show them what we can do in return," Webb said. "Lieutenant Okafor, target their lead ships. Fire at will." The Dawnbreaker's primary energy cannons, built using power output levels far beyond anything the alien scout ship's technology had suggested was possible, fired their first shots in anger. Twin beams of concentrated energy lanced out across the darkness, striking the nearest alien cruiser directly along its hull. On the bridge of that ship, the crew had less than a second to register the impact before their vessel's shields, rated to withstand the heaviest weapons known to the Cordon Alliance, simply failed. The beam continued through the shield collapse and struck the ship's hull, cutting through armor plating that had never before been breached by any weapon its crew had encountered. The ship broke apart in a silent flash of light, debris scattering outward in the vacuum. Aboard the Alliance flagship, General Ashka stared at his screen in stunned silence as one of his cruisers simply vanished from the tactical display. "Report," he said quietly. Tessik's hands trembled slightly as he worked his console. "General, the Kelbra star has been destroyed. One shot, General. A single shot from that small vessel destroyed a fully shielded cruiser in less than 1 second." The bridge fell silent. "That is not possible," Ashka said, his earlier confidence cracking. "Our shields have withstood direct hits from planetary defense cannons. No single ship of that size should carry a weapon capable of—" Another marker vanished from the display. Then another. "General!" Tessik's voice rose with alarm. "2 more vessels destroyed. The Vantor's Reach and the Descent Cloud, both gone. The human ship is moving through our formation, and our weapons fire does not seem to be affecting it in any meaningful way." Ashka watched, his forearms tightening into fists, as ship after ship in his forward attack group fell to a single vessel that continued moving forward with what seemed like calm, deliberate precision, never rushing, never panicking, simply firing with terrible accuracy each time a target presented itself. Aboard the Dawnbreaker, the mood was very different. The bridge crew worked with intense focus, but beneath the focus, something else was beginning to grow. A quiet, building sense of disbelief at what they were seeing on their own screens. "Captain," Lieutenant Okafor said, voice tight with concentration as he tracked another target and fired, watching it vanish from the display. "Their shields are failing far more easily than we expected. Either our weapons are stronger than our projections suggested, or their defenses are simply not built to handle output at this level." "Whatever the reason," Webb said, "keep firing. Commander Reyes, status on incoming fire?" "Shields at 76% and holding steady," Elena reported. "They are hitting us, Captain, but nowhere near as effectively as we feared. I think their weapons technology may be significantly behind our own, despite their numbers advantage." Webb allowed himself the smallest hint of a smile. 12 years of work, and it seems we built something even better than we hoped." The battle continued for several more minutes, though to those aboard the Dawnbreaker, it felt both impossibly fast and strangely slow, adrenaline stretching each second, even as ships fell one after another around them. Of the 40 vessels sent to destroy the single human ship, more than half had already been reduced to drifting wreckage. Aboard the Alliance flagship, panic was beginning to spread beyond the command deck. Word had reached the wider fleet through emergency channels, spreading faster than Ashka could control it. Crews on ships still holding formation, still waiting for their turn to engage, listened to the chaotic reports coming from the forward attack group with growing dread. "They are being slaughtered," one junior officer whispered to another aboard a nearby cruiser, watching the tactical display with wide eyes. "One ship, One single human ship, and it is tearing through our best attack force like it is nothing. Elder Koss, watching the same battle unfold from his own vessel further back in the formation, felt a cold certainty settle over him, the same instinct that had warned him weeks ago about the missing scout ships. "General Ashka," he said over the command channel, his voice carrying a warning that could no longer be ignored. "You must recall the remaining ships immediately. We are not facing a primitive species testing simple defenses. We are facing something far more dangerous than any of us understood." On the bridge of the flagship, Ashka stared at the display, watching his once proud attack force crumble before a single enemy vessel, and for the first time in his long career as a warrior of the Cordon Alliance, he felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear. "Recall the remaining ships," he said quietly. Then, louder, with growing urgency in his voice, "Recall them now. All ships, fall back to the main formation immediately." But it was already too late for many of them, and aboard the Dawnbreaker, Captain Webb watched the retreating alien vessels on his screen, ships turning and fleeing back toward the safety of their main fleet, and understood that the message humanity had wanted to send had already been received, loud and clear, spreading through the alien formation like fire through dry grass. They had gotten their first glimpse of a human warship, and it terrified them. The retreating alien ships fled back toward the main body of the Cordon Alliance fleet, their crews shaken, their formation broken. Behind them, the Dawnbreaker slowed its advance, holding position among the drifting wreckage of the ships it had destroyed. On the bridge, Captain Webb studied the tactical display with a careful, measured expression, though inside, even he felt the weight of what had just happened. 23 enemy vessels destroyed, 17 more damaged and retreating, and the Dawnbreaker itself, still intact, its shields holding at 71% after absorbing hundreds of weapons impacts. "Status report," Webb said. "All primary systems remain functional," Samuel reported, wiping sweat from his forehead despite the controlled temperature of the bridge. "We took heavier fire than any of our simulations predicted, but the ship performed better than we projected in almost every category. Shield regeneration is already climbing back toward full capacity." "Casualties?" Webb asked, though he already suspected the answer. "None, Captain," Elena said, a note of quiet relief in her voice. "Not one crew member injured." A ripple of disbelief passed through the bridge crew. 12 years of secret work, the entire future of humanity's defense, resting on this single mission, and they had not lost a single life while destroying nearly a quarter of the enemy's forward attack force. "They are regrouping," Priya reported, drawing everyone's attention back to the screen. "The remaining 260 ships are pulling back into a tighter formation near the main flagship. It looks like they intend to make a larger, coordinated push, rather than sending small groups." Webb nodded slowly. "That is what I would do too, if I were in their position." "Commander Reyes, what is your assessment?" Elena studied the data streaming across her console. "They still outnumber us badly, Captain. Even with the losses they have taken, 260 ships against one is not a fight we can simply keep winning through firepower alone. If they commit everything at once, in a single overwhelming wave, our shields may not hold no matter how strong our weapons are. Then we do not let them fight the battle they want to fight," Webb said. "Dr. Osei, what is the status of the maneuvering thrusters and the stealth systems after combat?" Samuel checked his readings. Stealth systems took some strain during the engagement but remain functional. Maneuvering is at full capacity. "Good," Webb said. "Then we do what this ship was built to do. We do not stand still and trade blows like an old naval battle. We move. We strike where they are weakest, and we vanish before they can respond in force." Aboard the Alliance flagship, General Ashka stood at the center of his bridge, his earlier confidence replaced by something colder and more careful. Around him, officers worked at their stations, some visibly shaken, others trying hard not to show their fear in front of their commander. "Casualty report," Ashka said quietly. Tessik's voice was tight as he read from his console. 23 vessels confirmed destroyed, General. 17 more damaged, several severely. Estimated crew losses across the destroyed vessels number in the thousands. "In less than 10 minutes, Ashka said, more to himself than to anyone else. "One ship did this in less than 10 minutes. Elder Koss's image appeared on a side screen, having requested an emergency channel with the fleet commander. General, I must insist now that we reconsider this entire operation. We came here believing we faced a primitive species incapable of real resistance. That belief has cost us dearly already. And what would you have me do, Elder? Ashka snapped, though the anger in his voice was thin, covering something closer to fear. Retreat? Return home and tell the Alliance Council that we fled from a single enemy ship? I would have you survive, Koss said simply. There is no honor in throwing away more lives to prove a point that has already been disproven. That single ship destroyed nearly a quarter of our forward force and did not lose a single vessel in return. If a species with such weak beginnings only decades ago has already built something capable of this, then we do not yet understand what we are truly facing. Ashka was silent for a long moment, his 4 arms hanging tensely at his sides. Finally he spoke, his voice carrying a mixture of pride and rising dread. We still outnumber them more than 200 to 1. If we commit the entire fleet in a single coordinated assault, surely even their remarkable ship cannot withstand fire from every vessel we have remaining. Perhaps not, Koss admitted. But at what cost, General? How many more of our people will we lose learning that lesson, if we are wrong? Before Ashka could answer, alarms began sounding across the bridge. General! Tessic called out, alarm clear in his voice. The human vessel! It has vanished from our sensors again. Vanished? Where did it go? I do not know, General. One moment it was holding position near the wreckage field, and the next, our sensors simply lost track of it entirely. Ashka's grip on the edge of his console tightened. Full alert. All ships, maximum sensor sweep. Find that vessel. But the Dawnbreaker was no longer where anyone expected it to be. Using its stealth systems at full capacity, the ship had slipped away from the wreckage field and circled wide around the main body of the alien fleet, approaching from an unexpected angle, moving quietly through the dark toward the fleet's rear formations, where supply vessels and lightly defended support craft waited, unaware of the danger approaching. Target acquired, Lieutenant Okafor reported from his station aboard the Dawnbreaker. Rear supply group, 16 vessels, lightly shielded, minimal weapons. Captain, Elena said carefully, these appear to be non-combat vessels, supply ships, medical transports perhaps. Webb considered this for a long moment. Can you confirm they are unarmed? Scans show minimal weapon signatures on most of them, Elena said. A few carry basic defensive turrets, nothing more. Then we do not destroy them, Webb decided. Disable their engines. Ground them without killing the crews aboard, if we can manage it. We are not here to commit a massacre. We are here to convince an entire alliance that attacking Earth would be a costly mistake. There is a difference. Elena felt a small measure of pride at the order, understanding the wisdom behind it even in the middle of a desperate battle. A message of strength delivered with unnecessary cruelty would only breed hatred and a desire for revenge. A message of strength delivered with restraint might instead breed respect, and perhaps even the beginning of caution rather than endless war. The Dawnbreaker moved through the alien fleet's rear formation with terrifying precision, striking engine systems and weapon mounts on the 16 supply vessels with carefully calculated shots that disabled without destroying. Within minutes, all 16 ships drifted powerless in space, their crews shaken but alive, watching helplessly as the human vessel that had appeared from nowhere moved on, vanishing once more into the dark before the main fleet could respond. Word of this second strike spread through the Alliance fleet, even faster than the first. This time, the panic was not limited to the crews who had directly witnessed the attack. Every ship in the formation now understood that the enemy could appear anywhere, at any moment, without warning, and there seemed to be nothing they could do to stop it. On the bridge of the flagship, General Ashka watched reports come in from the disabled supply group, his confidence crumbling further with each passing minute. General, Tessic said quietly, several ship captains are requesting permission to withdraw from the formation. They say their crews are refusing to hold position, fearing they will be the next target. Absolutely not, Ashka growled. We do not break formation. We do not show weakness. But even as he spoke the words, he could feel the fleet slipping from his control. Fear, once it took root among a group of people, spread far faster and far deeper than any order could contain. Across the 260 remaining ships, Whispered reports and half-true rumors multiplied the danger in the minds of frightened crews. Some said the human ship had destroyed 50 vessels, not 23. Some said it could not be hit by any weapon at all. Some said it was not one ship, but many, appearing and disappearing at will. Elder Koss watched this unraveling with a heavy heart, understanding that the battle for the fleet's spirit was already being lost, regardless of what happened next in actual combat. "General," he said over the command channel once more, "I urge you again, formally and for the record, to consider withdrawal, not from cowardice, but from wisdom. A fleet that no longer believes in its own strength has already lost, no matter how many ships remain in its formation." Ashka's 4 hands clenched into fists at his sides. Pride warred with the growing certainty that Koss was right. He thought of the Alliance Council waiting for his report, of the reputation he had built over decades of service, of what it would mean to return home having lost a battle against a single enemy vessel from a species they had dismissed as primitive only weeks ago. But he also thought of the 23 destroyed ships, the 16 disabled supply vessels, and the growing certainty that whatever came next would only add to that number. "Prepare a full fleet assault," he said finally, his voice rough. "Every ship, converging fire on any location where the human vessel is detected. If we cannot outmaneuver them, we will overwhelm them with sheer numbers. All ships, spread into a wide search pattern. The moment that vessel reveals itself, concentrate everything we have on its position." Aboard the Dawnbreaker, Elena watched the alien fleet's formation shift on her display, spreading out into a wide net clearly designed to try to trap their single ship between converging fire from multiple directions. "Captain, they are adapting their tactics," she reported, "spreading into a search pattern that will make it harder for us to strike and retreat without running into concentrated fire from multiple groups." Webb studied the display carefully. "Then we need to be smarter than simply hitting and running forever. Dr. O.C., what is our current power reserve status?" "Main power core at 93%, Samuel reported. "We have used significant energy in combat, but our reserves remain strong. We could sustain several more hours of combat operations at current output levels." "Good," Webb said. He was quiet for a moment, studying the spreading formation of alien ships, calculating. "Commander Reyes, I want you to identify their flagship's exact position and any weaknesses in its shield coverage. If we can force this fleet to stand down, it will come from convincing their leadership directly, not simply from destroying more of their ships." Elena worked quickly, cross-referencing sensor data. Their flagship, the Vantor's Crown, is holding position near the center of their formation, heavily escorted. Its shields appear significantly stronger than the smaller vessels we have engaged so far, likely a command-class defense system. "Understood," Webb said. "Then we will need to be patient, and we will need to be precise. Helm, bring us in slow, staying within our stealth envelope as long as possible. I want to get close enough to make our next message impossible to ignore." The Dawnbreaker began moving once more, slipping quietly through the darkness between drifting groups of searching alien ships, weaving a careful path toward the heart of the Cordon Alliance fleet, toward the flagship at its center, where General Ashka stood watching his sensors with growing desperation, waiting for any sign of the enemy that had, in the space of a single day, brought an entire armada to the edge of panic. None of them yet understood that this was only the beginning of what humanity intended to show them. The Dawnbreaker moved through the scattered alien search formation like a shadow slipping between candle flames, always just out of reach, always one step ahead of the sensors sweeping the dark in search of it. Inside the ship, the crew worked in tense silence, watching the slow, careful approach toward the heart of the Cordon Alliance fleet. "We are closing on the flagship's outer escort screen," Priya reported quietly, as though speaking too loudly might somehow give away their position. 12 ships forming a tight defensive ring around the Vantor's Crown. "Stealth systems holding?" Webb asked. "Barely," Samuel admitted from his station. "We are close enough now that some of their more sensitive scanners are picking up fragments of our signature. I would estimate we have perhaps 10 minutes before they get a solid lock on our position, if we stay this close." 10 minutes is enough," Webb said. "Commander Reyes, prepare another open channel. This time, I want it directed specifically at their flagship." Elena's hands moved quickly across her console. Channel ready, Captain. Webb straightened in his chair, his voice calm and clear as it had been during the first transmission, though now it carried the added weight of everything that had happened since. This is Captain Marcus Webb, of the human vessel Dawnbreaker. General Ashka, I know you can hear this. You have lost 23 warships and 16 support vessels today. I did not disable your supply group by accident. I could have destroyed them entirely, as I destroyed your attack force. I chose not to. I am asking you now, directly, to withdraw your remaining fleet from this system. This is not a threat made from weakness. This is a warning made from strength, offered once, out of respect for the lives that do not need to be lost today. On the bridge of the flagship, General Ashka listened to the transmission in tense silence, his crew watching him carefully, waiting to see how he would respond. Around him, on secondary screens, he could see the anxious faces of his remaining ship captains, all listening to the same broadcast, all waiting for his decision. General, Tessick said quietly, our sensors are picking up something. A very faint contact, close, very close to our position. It may be them. Ashka's eyes narrowed. If the enemy vessel had come close enough to be detected, even faintly, then perhaps this was an opportunity rather than only a threat. Concentrate all available fire on that contact immediately. Every ship in the escort screen, converge fire on that location now. 12 alien warships turned as one, their weapons systems locking onto the faint signature detected near the edge of their sensor range, and unleashed a storm of concentrated fire into the darkness. Aboard the Dawnbreaker, alarms blared as the ship's shields absorbed the sudden, massive impact of 12 warships firing simultaneously. Shields down to 52%, Samuel called out, gripping his console as the ship shuddered violently. That is a significant hit, Captain. Concentrated fire from that many vessels at once is testing our limits. Helm, evasive maneuvers, Webb ordered. Get us clear of that firing line. The Dawnbreaker banked hard, engines flaring as it pulled away from the concentrated barrage, weaving between the drifting escort ships with movements far faster and more precise than anything the alien vessels could match. Elena watched the shield readout climb back upward slowly as they cleared the worst of the incoming fire, but the damage had been a clear reminder that even their remarkable ship had limits. They found a way to hurt us, Elena said, a note of grudging respect in her voice, even amid the tension. Concentrated fire from multiple vessels at once. If they can maintain that kind of coordinated targeting, our shield advantage will not last forever. Then we make sure this ends before that becomes a problem, Webb said. Lieutenant Okafor, target the escort ring. We need to open a path to that flagship and we need to do it quickly. The Dawnbreaker turned back toward the escort formation, engines blazing, and began a rapid, aggressive assault on the ring of 12 warships surrounding the Alliance flagship. Unlike the earlier, more cautious engagement, this time the human ship moved with clear urgency, striking multiple targets in rapid succession, weaving between return fire with maneuvers that left the alien pilots struggling to track their movements. One escort ship fell, its shields collapsing under a direct hit. Then another struck along its weapons array, drifting powerless but intact. A third took heavy damage to its engines and began tumbling slowly out of formation. On the bridge of the flagship, Ashka watched his protective screen crumble ship by ship, the same helpless feeling from earlier in the day, returning with even greater force, now that the threat was bearing down directly on his own vessel. General, Elder Koss's voice came through urgently on the command channel, no longer simply advising caution but pleading for action. You must respond to their message. This is not a fight we are winning. This is a fight we are barely surviving, and even that will not last much longer. Ashka stared at the tactical display, watching his escort ring collapse before a single enemy ship, and felt the last of his pride finally give way to something closer to clear, cold reason. Open a channel to the human vessel, he said quietly. Aboard the Dawnbreaker, Elena's console chimed with an incoming transmission request. Captain, they are responding. Put it through, Webb said. General Ashka's voice, translated through the Dawnbreaker's systems, came through with a tone far different from the confidence he had shown at the start of this engagement. Captain Webb, this is General Ashka of the Cordon Alliance fleet. You have made your point. I am ordering my remaining ships to withdraw from this system. Webb allowed himself a slow breath of relief, though his expression remained steady and professional. That is a wise decision, General. I want to be clear that this does not need to be the beginning of a longer war. Earth does not seek conflict with your alliance. We seek only to be left in peace, and to be recognized as a species capable of defending itself, and worthy of being treated as an equal, rather than dismissed as unimportant. There was a pause on the other end of the channel. When Ashka spoke again, his voice carried something that might have been the beginning of genuine respect, hard-won through the events of the day. I will carry that message back to the Alliance Council myself, Captain Webb. I cannot promise how it will be received. There are voices among our leadership who value pride over wisdom, much as I once did before today. But I will speak honestly of what I witnessed here, and I will not recommend a return to this system, not soon, and perhaps not ever, unless it is with intentions of peace rather than conquest. That is all I ask, General, Webb said. The channel closed, and across the tactical display, the remaining ships of the Cordon Alliance fleet began to withdraw, turning away from the human ship and the wreckage field that marked the site of their first true defeat in living memory. 237 ships, all that remained of the proud fleet that had approached Earth's solar system with such confidence, only hours before, retreated into the dark, carrying with them a story that would soon spread far beyond the borders of the Cordon Alliance itself. Aboard the Dawnbreaker, the bridge crew allowed themselves their first real moment of relief since the mission began. Elena leaned back in her chair, feeling the tension of the past hours finally begin to ease from her shoulders. Report to Earth Defense Command, Webb said, turning to Priya. Mission successful. Enemy fleet repelled. No human casualties. Minor to moderate damage to the Dawnbreaker, currently being assessed. Captain, Samuel said, still checking readings at his station, though a small, exhausted smile had finally broken through his earlier nervousness. For whatever it is worth, every single system on this ship performed beyond what we projected in 12 years of planning and testing. We did it. We actually did it. We did, Webb agreed, though I suspect this is only the beginning, not the end. General Ashka mentioned a wider alliance council. If this fleet was only sent as a test, as it seems from what we overheard in their communications, then there are larger powers out there who will soon learn what happened here today. Elena nodded slowly, already thinking ahead. Word will spread, not just through the Cordon Alliance, but likely to every neighboring power that trades information with them. A single Earth ship defeating an entire alien fleet without losing a single crew member. That is not the kind of story that stays contained to one small corner of the galaxy. Then we should be ready for what comes next, Webb said. But for today, let us take this victory for what it is. Humanity's first battle among the stars, and humanity's first true glimpse of proof that we are not as small or as weak as anyone believed. As the Dawnbreaker began its slow journey back toward Earth, escorting the disabled supply vessels it had captured rather than destroyed, word of the battle was already spreading far beyond the edge of the solar system. General Ashka's retreating fleet carried the story to Alliance space, where it moved from ship to ship, from officer to officer, growing more remarkable with each retelling, though the core truth remained unchanged, and, if anything, understated compared to what had actually occurred. A single human warship had engaged 300 vessels of the Cordon Alliance fleet and emerged victorious, destroying dozens of ships and disabling more, all without suffering a single confirmed casualty among its own crew. Within days, the story reached the ears of other powers throughout that region of the galaxy, powers who had their own long-standing rivalries and uneasy peace with the Cordon Alliance, powers who now looked toward the small, previously ignored blue world called Earth with a very different kind of attention. Some viewed the news with caution, deciding that whatever conflicts they had planned in that direction of space could wait for further information. Others viewed it with something closer to genuine alarm, wondering what other secrets this quiet, dismissed species might be hiding, and whether a single warship truly represented the full extent of what humanity had built in the shadows of its own solar system. And in the halls of the Cordon Alliance Council itself, on the distant world of Thren, the news of General Ashka's defeat arrived like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples outward that would soon reach every corner of Alliance space, and beyond it, into territories held by powers far larger and far more dangerous than the fleet that had first approached Earth with such careless confidence. The panic that had swept through a single retreating armada was only the first ripple of something much larger beginning to spread across the stars. 3 weeks after the battle near Earth's outer system, the Cordon Alliance Council met on the world of Thren in a session unlike any held in the past century. The wide chamber, usually filled with calm debate and slow, careful decisions, now buzzed with tension as representatives from every member world argued over what had happened and what should be done about it. General Ashka stood before the full council, his 4 arms held stiffly at his sides, recounting the events of the battle for what felt like the 100th time since his return. He had told the story honestly, without exaggeration, though he had come to understand that the plain truth was frightening enough without any need to make it worse. "One ship," Speaker Doran said slowly, staring at the report on the table before him. "One ship destroyed 23 of our vessels and disabled 16 more without loss." "That is correct," Ashka confirmed. "And you believe this represents the full extent of their capability?" another council member asked, a sharp-voiced representative from a smaller member world. "I do not know," Ashka admitted, and the honesty of that admission carried more weight in the chamber than any confident claim could have. "We saw one ship. We do not know how many more they may have built, or how much stronger the next one might be. What I do know is that we approached them believing they were primitive, and that belief nearly cost me my entire fleet." Elder Koss rose slowly from his seat, his quiet voice cutting through the murmurs that followed Ashka's words. "I would remind this council that I raised concerns before this fleet ever departed, concerns that were dismissed as overly cautious. I do not say this to place blame. General Ashka acted according to the information available to him at the time, as did we all. I say this only to remind us that we must not make the same mistake twice. This species built something extraordinary while the rest of the galaxy paid them no attention at all. We would be fools to continue underestimating them now that we know better." The debate continued for hours, voices rising and falling as different factions argued for different paths forward. Some pushed for a larger, more overwhelming military response, determined to erase the embarrassment of the defeat through sheer force. Others, chastened by what had happened, argued for caution, for observation, for the slow gathering of better information before any further action was taken. A smaller group, quieter than the others but growing in number as the debate wore on, suggested something that would have seemed unthinkable only a month before: the possibility of approaching Earth not as a target for conquest, but as a power to be spoken with directly, carefully, on terms of mutual respect rather than assumed superiority. Far across known space, this same story was spreading through other channels as well, carried by traders, by diplomats, by the countless small connections that linked different star-faring civilizations together, even when they were not formally allied with one another. In distant systems ruled by powers who had never even heard the word Earth before, officers and leaders began pulling old, ignored reports about a small, unremarkable planet in an unremarkable system, reports that had been filed away and forgotten, because nothing about that system had ever seemed worth a second look. Now, everyone was looking a second time. Back on Earth, in the underground base that had hidden the Dawnbreaker's construction for 12 long years, the mood was one of cautious celebration, mixed with the sober understanding that the true test still lay ahead. Elena Reyes stood once again on the observation platform overlooking the massive hangar, watching repair crews work on the ship's hull, patching the damage sustained during the battle. Beside her, Samuel Osei studied a tablet full of data gathered from the engagement, his earlier nervous energy replaced by something more focused and determined. "The data from this battle alone will let us improve almost every system on this ship," he said, "and it will let us build the next one even better. Fleet Command has already approved funding and resources for 3 more vessels of the same class, plus a 4th, larger design, based on lessons learned from the Dawnbreaker's performance." 3 more ships, Elena said, a small smile crossing her tired face. "It seems the secret of what we have been building will not stay a secret much longer, not from our own people, and certainly not from the rest of the galaxy." "No," Samuel agreed, "but perhaps that is not entirely a bad thing. For 12 years we hid this project because we were afraid of what would happen if the wrong people learned about it too soon, either among our own governments or among whatever was out there in the stars. Now that fear has changed shape. Now the question is not whether the galaxy knows humanity can defend itself. The question is, what humanity chooses to do with that knowledge. Captain Webb joined them on the platform, having just finished a long debriefing session with Earth's highest military and political leadership. He looked tired but steady, the same calm expression he had worn throughout the battle still present, though softened now by the relief of having returned home successfully. Fleet Command has a new mission profile for us, he said. Not an attack, a meeting. It seems word of our battle reached a neighboring power called the Threll Compact, a smaller alliance that has had an uneasy relationship with the Cordon Alliance for generations. They have reached out through slow, careful channels, requesting the possibility of direct contact with Earth's leadership, not as conquerors, as potential partners. Elena raised an eyebrow. That was fast. Word travels quickly among the stars, it seems, Webb said. Faster than any of us expected. I suspect this will not be the last such request we receive. Some will come with good intentions. Others, I imagine, will still see us as either a threat to be removed or a resource to be taken, regardless of what we proved in that battle. We will need to be ready for both kinds. Elena looked out over the hangar, watching sparks fly from welding tools as repair crews worked steadily on the Dawnbreaker's hull, and thought about how much had changed in the span of just a few weeks. Humanity had stepped out from the shadows of its own solar system for the first time, and the galaxy had responded with fear, respect, curiosity, and no small amount of uncertainty about what this newly revealed species truly represented. Do you think we made the right choice? She asked quietly. Building this ship in secret, revealing it the way we did? Webb considered the question carefully before answering. I think we did the only thing we could do, given what we knew at the time. We were dismissed as unimportant by a species that never even bothered to properly study us before writing us off. That could have meant we were left alone forever, or it could have meant that one day, a much larger and much more determined force would have come to take what they wanted, with no warning at all, and no chance for us to prepare. We chose to prepare anyway, quietly, so that if that day ever came, we would not be as helpless as they assumed we were. And now that they know we are not helpless, Elena asked. Now, Webb said, we get to decide what kind of neighbor humanity wants to be. That is a far better problem to have than the one we faced 12 years ago, when all we could do was hope we were building the right thing in time. Months passed, and the story of the battle near Earth continued to spread, reaching further corners of the galaxy with each passing season. Some who heard it dismissed it as exaggeration, unable to believe that a single ship from such a young species could achieve what the reports described. Others, more cautious by nature, began quietly adjusting their own plans and ambitions, deciding that whatever business they had intended to pursue in that region of space could wait, or could proceed only with far greater care than originally planned. The Cordon Alliance itself entered a long period of internal debate that would eventually reshape its relationship not only with Earth, but with several of its neighboring powers as well. General Ashka, rather than being punished for his defeat as he had feared, found himself instead respected for the honesty and restraint of his final report, and for the wisdom of ordering a retreat rather than continuing to throw lives away in a battle that could not be won through pride alone. He would go on, in later years, to become one of the strongest voices within the Alliance, advocating for careful, respectful contact with Earth, rather than renewed conflict, having learned firsthand the cost of underestimating a determined and capable people. Elder Koss, whose early warnings had proven so accurate, found his counsel sought more often in the years that followed, his quiet caution now valued in a way it had not been before the battle taught the Alliance a painful lesson about assumptions and pride. And on Earth, the Dawnbreaker was joined, one, by new ships built using everything learned from that first battle. The secret shipyard beneath the mountains grew larger, its work no longer hidden quite so completely, though still guarded carefully against those who might wish humanity harm. Elena Reyes, promoted to oversee the growing fleet's development, often thought back to that first tense day, watching a single ship rise from beneath a mountain to face 300 enemies, uncertain if humanity's 12 years of quiet, desperate effort would be enough. It had been enough. Not because humanity was somehow naturally superior to the many other species scattered across the stars, but because a small, previously ignored planet had refused to accept being dismissed, had worked quietly and patiently for over a decade to prepare for a threat it did not yet fully understand, and had been ready when that threat finally arrived at its door. Across the wider galaxy, in council chambers and command decks belonging to powers both friendly and hostile toward the newly revealed human species, the same quiet lesson continued to spread among those wise enough to learn from it. A single human warship appearing without warning among an armada 300 strong had been enough to shatter every assumption that easy victory awaited anyone who came to Earth expecting to find a weak and defenseless people. Their first glimpse of a human warship had swept panic through an entire enemy armada. It would not be their last glimpse of what humanity had built, and across the stars, word continued to spread that this quiet, previously overlooked species was no longer a people to be dismissed, but a people to be carefully, respectfully understood, before any power made the same costly mistake that General Ashka's fleet had made on that first, unforgettable day.